The morning to you, my ladies. My name is Kale Kupperman, and today I'm gonna read a book. And it's another one of the Mr. Men books that last time I read Mr. Clever, so today I'm gonna read Mr. Messy by Roger Hammersley. Hey, yep, this is another one of the Mr. Men books. You know, I might get more Mr. Men books someday in the future. Don't worry about it. But I'm gonna read you guys the book. But before that, I'm gonna drink it. Drink my drink first. You can tell it's made out with sorrow. You know that. And now let's get reading the book. Okay, Mr. Messy by Roger Hamilton. Mr. Messy was the messy person that you've ever met in your wild life. He looked messy because he was messy in everything he did. You could always tell when Mr. Messy had been because he left a trail of messy finger points whenever he sing. I mean chips. You can tell that it's Samboy barbecue chips. Now where was I? Oh yeah. Where am I being? Oh yes, Mr. Messy. It was messy. Sorry about probably. Messy by nature. Mr. Messy lived in hang on. Mr. Messy lived apartment messy looking house. The point was peeling. The windows is broken. Broken. There were tiles missing from the roof. The flowers beds were overgrown with weeds. The garden gate was off its height. And had Mr. Messy cut the grass in his garden lately? He had not. One morning, Mr. Messy woke up in his messy bed. Yawned, scratched, got up, cleaned his teeth, leaving the top of the toothpaste. Had his was spilling cornflakes all over the floor, and then set out for a walk, tripping over the broom he left over the garden 2 weeks before. There was a wood behind Mr. Messy's messy house, with the messy garden, and that's where he went for his walk. It was large wood with lots and lots of trees, and it took Mr. Messy a long time to walk through it, but he didn't really mind because he felt like walking that morning, so he walked and walked right through the wood until he come to the other side. And do you know where he found the other side of the wood? Mr. Messy found the neatest, prettiest looking little cottage that he had ever seen. It had a lovely little garden with a stream running through the middle of it. There was a man in the garden clipping the huge. He looked up as Mr. Messy apartment and "Good morning, I'm Mr. Messy," said Mr. Messy. "I can't see it, that," replied the man, looking him up and down. I'm Mr. Tidy. And I'm Mr. Ned, said another man appearing up over the house. Tidy and neat, said Mr. Tidy. Neat and tiny, said Mr. Neat. We're in business together, explained Mr. Tidy, and the people who own this house have asked us to do some work for them. What sort of work? Asked Mr. Messy. Oh, we make things nice and neat, said Mr. Net. Tidy things up at Mr. Tidy. Perhaps we could came along and do the same work for you, said Mr. Ned, looking at Mr. Messy, who was looking even messier than usual. Guys, I'm drinking Coke. You know it's a frozen Coke. Now where was I? Aha, perhaps we could see, said Mr. Ned, looking at the Mr. Messy, who was looking even messier than usual and poor morning. But I don't want things neat and tidy, said Mr. Messy, looking down through mystery at the thought of it. Nonsense, said Mr. Tidy. Fiddlesticks, said Mr. Neat. But, said Mr. Messy. Come along, said Mr. Net. Off we go, said Mr. Tidy. But, said Mr. Messy. But nothing, said Mr. Net. And Bonnie him into their van, which was parked behind the house. Off they went to Mr. Messy at the other side of the wood. Good heavens, said Mr. Net. We saw when Mr. Messy lived. Good greetings, me and Mr. Tidy. This is the messiest house I ever seen in all my boring days. They both sound together at the same time. Better do something about it, said Mr. Matt. And before Mr. Messy could open it, his mouth, the two of them were rushing here and there about Mr. Messy's house. Mr. Neat howled and mawed and pawed and snapped and clapped and cleared and dug and made the gun look neater than it had looking before. Mr. Cleaned and pulled and rubbed and painted and made the outside of Mr. Messy house look tighter than it had ever looked before. Then they both went outside the house. Good heavens, said Mr. Ned for the second time that morning. Good gracious, said Mr. Tidy for the second time that morning. And then they set about cleaning the house from the top of the bottom. They brushed and swept and polished and scrubbed and made the outside of the house look neater and tighter than it had ever looked before. There we are, said Mr. Tidy. All finished, said Mr. Net. Tidy and neat, said Mr. Tidy. Neat and tidy, said Mr. Net. And Mr. Messy just didn't know what to say. They both looked at Mr. Messy. They are thinking what I'm thinking. Mr. Net said to Mr. Tidy, "What precious," replied Mr. Tidy. "With what we both thinking," they said together, "that Mr. Messy is that you look much too messy to live in a neat and tidy house like this." "But," said Mr. Messy, "but whatever Mr. Messy said, there was no use, and Mr. Ned and Mr. Tiny whisked him off to the bedroom upstairs. It had been the messiest room in the house, but now, of course, it was neat and a new pin. And then Mr. Ned got hold of one of Mr. Messy's arms, and Mr. Tiny got hold of the other arm, and they picked him up and put him straight into a bath Mr. Messy was using to having baths. Mr. Ned and Mr. Tiny washed and brushed and cleaned and scrubbed and scrubbing Mr. Messy until he didn't look like Mr. Messy at all. In fact, he looked an opposite of messy. He looked at himself in the mirror. You know what I'm giving to have a do now," he said in a Wallace voice. Mr. and Mr. Tiny looked worried. "Well, what are you going to do they asked Mr. Messy. "I'm going to have to change my name," said Mr. Messy, and then he clacked, and Mr. Ned and Mr. Tiny clacked, and Mr. Messy laughed, and Mr. Ned and Mr. Tiny laughed, and then they all laughed together and become the bestest friends. And then really, it's the end of the story, except to say, if you're Messy or sort of person, you might have a visit from two people. And you know what they are called, don't you? Well, I guess I have to end this book, but in the end, what do you guys think of this book? Do you like it, book? Then make sure to check out notification, like, subscribe, and keep your notification. And before I go, I want to say tomorrow I'm gonna go to the movies, correct? But I'm gonna still keep doing my YouTube videos after I'll go to the movies tomorrow. Okay, I'm gonna get going now. I'll see you guys later. See ya!